Hello, my name is Douglas Bloch. Welcome to the Depression Recovery Channel, where each week we talk about practical tools and coping strategies for healing from depression and anxiety. Today is Flashback Friday, a feature in which I republish one of my earlier videos you might not have seen that contains really important coping strategies that will help you attain a better mood. Now here's today's video. The title of today's video is How to Stop Intrusive and Obsessive Thoughts. Before we address that topic, we have to do our regular joke, get some humor out here, right? So this joke is about the Puritans. I know a lot of my viewers are not from America, but the Puritans came over from England. They were the first people who colonized America after the Native Americans, of course. And they were not very fun-loving people. They were, really very religious, didn't believe in having a good time. But one thing they liked was music, and a particular type of music. So what was the music that the Puritans really liked? It's called Plymouth Rock. Well, for those of you who don't get it, look up Google Puritans and Plymouth Rock on the internet and you'll find out why that's funny. All right, moving right along here. That was told to me by one of my new clients. I gave her 10% off the next group because I liked it. Anyway, write in jokes to me. You'll never know what kind of gifts you can get. I'm always looking for good new jokes. So, title of today's video is How to Stop Intrusive and Obsessive Thoughts. This is a big problem for people with depression and anxiety. And before we, kind of find out how to do this, let's define what is an intrusive thought. I like this definition I got from Wikipedia. An intrusive thought is an unwelcome, involuntary thought, image, or upsetting idea that may become an obsession and can feel difficult to manage or to eliminate. Another name for these intrusive thoughts is automatic negative thoughts, or ants. How do we get rid of these ants? Does anybody have an anteater in the house? Is there an anteater in the house? Well, now the problem with intrusive thoughts is that when they invade the brain, they create neural pathways, kind of like the grooves of an LP record that grow stronger and stronger over time. So what do we do? Well, I'm going to give you a couple of tips. But first, of course, I need to mention you can't really control these thoughts. That's why they're intrusive, right? They just come out of left field. But although you can't stop them from coming in, you can control how you respond to them. So I'm going to give you a few tips right now. And the first tip I'm going to give to you is to tell you what not to do, right? Don't fight against them. Don't try to push them away. Don't argue with them, because if you do so, you're just going to make them stronger. It's like if I told you, don't think of pink elephants. What's the first thing you think of? Pink elephants. Instead, it's better to practice non-resistance like they do in the martial arts, and just observe your thoughts without trying to grab onto them or push them away. You can see them as leaves floating down a river, or clouds passing overhead, or trains going by, train cars going by, whatever suits you. And the practice of observing your thoughts in a detached way is called mindfulness meditation. A phrase that has become very popular lately. There's a ton of information on it. I made a video called The Mindful Way Through Depression, which you might want to see. And I really advise that you start a daily practice of mindfulness meditation. Sit down, take a deep breath, just observe your breath, and if thoughts come up, just notice them. And if you do this even 5 minutes a day, then in the heat of the battle, when these intrusive thoughts come in, you're much more likely to resort to that technique. The second technique I use when a negative thought pops in my brain is to say, cancel, cancel, and then replace it with a more empowering one. Now, this is based on a very simple principle called thought substitution, which says you can't hold two different thoughts at the same time in your minds. One of them has to give way to the other, and if you put the positive one in the place of negative one, the positive one will win out. So, for example, if the negative thought is, I'll never get better, you can say, well, this too shall pass, or I have the ability to attract the resources I need to heal from this depression. If the thought is about something from the past or regret from the past, as opposed to a fear of the future, like, I should never have moved from San Diego to Portland, Oregon. Believe me, 3 different people in my group said this. Well, you can just say, I made the best decision I could with the information I had. Or you can say, I can always move back to San Diego, which, believe it or not, somebody did. And then there's the third kind of negative thought, which are the critical thoughts, what I call the inner critic that so many people with depression face. And the way to deal with this is to immediately replace the critical thought with something that's more compassionate and affirming. And I've got a list of affirmations here that may give you some idea about how to do this, and we're going to go over them right now. So here are some examples. If the inner critic says, you're not good enough, you can respond, I'm okay the way I am. If the inner critic says, I hate myself, you can say, I like myself. You're worthless. I'm awesome. You can't do anything right. There are many things I can do. No one cares what you have to say. I have important things to share. Ultimately, the best way to inoculate yourself against the inner critic is to practice self-love and self-compassion, and also self-forgiveness. A third way to respond to a negative intrusive thought is to ask yourself, is this really true? This is very similar to what we do in cognitive therapy, where you challenge the irrational thought and replace it with a more realistic one. For example, I had a client who, when she took her walks through the park on a regular basis, this thought would come to her and it would say, people are revolted when they look at me. And after a while I said to her, well, ask yourself, is this really true? And she tried it and she said, well, I asked myself, is this true? And the answer was, I don't think so, because most people are so absorbed in their own mind and worried about their own thoughts, they probably are not even looking at me. And finally, you can respond to intrusive thoughts by using the principle of distraction. Now, I know that distraction normally has a negative connotation, like in the book, Driven to Distraction, about people with ADD. But in this case, it's a positive thing, because what distraction does is it moves your focus away from the intrusive thought into some activity that takes your mind off it, like watching a YouTube video or going for a walk, calling a friend. I remember many, many years ago, I was so depressed, my episode was so bad, I had to live with my parents. I moved in with them in New York, and then during the winter, they were snowbirds, so they moved down to Florida to their retirement community, where I was really alienated. Fortunately, I met a guy in the pro tennis shop who was my age, and we became friends, and I told him what I was going through. And every time he saw me looking down or mumbling, negative thoughts or suicidal thoughts, he'd say, Doug, meet me at the tennis court in 5 minutes. And before I knew it, I was so focused on trying to return his wicked serve, I couldn't think of anything else. If you'd like to have an extreme example of how to use the distraction technique, I recently posted a video about a man who jumped out of a plane in order to get himself into the present moment. He had anxiety and depression. He figured, well, maybe this would, make him think about something else. And sure enough, as he was free falling, all he could think about is one thing: pull that ripcord. All right. And oh yeah, there's one other thing. For those of you who believe in better living through chemistry, there is an antidepressant called Luvox, L-U-V-O, X is an X-ray, Luvox, that a number of people in my groups have used to take for OCD. It's actually approved for that use. And they tell me that when they take this medication, it reduces both the frequency and the intensity of their obsessive thoughts. Finally, before we who suffer from depression or anxiety or OCD feel too sorry for ourselves, I'm reminded of those poor souls out there who suffer from schizophrenia and hear actual real voices, not just obsessive or intrusive thoughts, but voices like I'm talking to you and you're hearing me. I remember going to an exhibit at a mental health conference where they actually create a virtual world of what it's like to be a schizophrenic, and I put on the headphones and whatever the video, and I actually was taken into the world of someone going into a drugstore to order a prescription, and these voices said, don't go to that pharmacist, that's poison. After 5 minutes of listening to this, I was going out of my mind. So my heart goes out to people who suffer from those kinds of thought disorders, and in this case, maybe an antipsychotic, maybe the risk, or actually the benefits are worth the risks, because that's no way to live. This has been Douglas Bloch. I hope you found the information on this Flashback Friday video helpful. If so, please give it a like, as likes draw more and more people to this channel, and hopefully some more subscribers. You can also leave your comments in the comments section or email me, douglasbloch@gmail.com. If you do want to subscribe to this channel, click on my photo in the closing credits. You'll be taken to my subscribe page. And if you click on the bell to the right, you'll be notified every time I do a new video or live chat. And if you want to contribute to this channel and become a patron, simply click on the Patreon image. You'll be taken to my crowdfunding site. And until next video, I wish you the best in your mental health recovery. Thank you so much.